The importance of video game legacies can't go understated. Nintendo's continuous selling of remasters or definitive editions of past games we know and love, plus possibly doing more limited time events like the ridiculous Super Mario 3D All-Star stunt. Xbox has won a ton of goodwill within the gaming industry thanks to backwards compatibility, and Xbox has also bought a ton of developers, recently adding Bethesda to Xbox Game Studios. Even as someone who doesn't necessarily appreciate backwards compatibility as much as they should, what Xbox is doing with backwards compatibility is amazing. Then there's PlayStation, who seemingly has no plans to support their video game legacy at all. As of the time of this video's recording, April 2021, the main conversation going around the gaming industry is about PlayStation's lack of support for their legacy video games. PlayStation recently announced that they're shutting down the digital stores for PS3, PS Vita, and PSP, and has put them into a bad light, deservedly so. PlayStation's questionable lack of support for their legacy seems to show that they've forgotten the importance of video game legacies to begin with. Without mascots such as Mario, Master Chief, Marcus Phoenix, Kratos, Sly Cooper, Crash Bandicoot, and Ratchet & Clank, we wouldn't have been able to fall in love with Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. Yet here PlayStation is, ignoring the past things that helped them not only win their audience over, but get their audience to buy into the PlayStation ecosystem too. PlayStation shunning their legacy audience is unfortunately not shocking. PlayStation support with PS4 games getting enhancements for the PS5 makes actual sense, but it also feels like they had no other options but to do so. What if they charged for PS5 enhancements for PS4 games such as God of War or Days Gone, and we had to pay something like $20 to $30? The backlash would be absolutely ridiculous, and it seems like PlayStation knew they had to do so because of how many PlayStations sold worldwide. It was almost like their hands were forced when it came to that situation, but not other situations such as this one with the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita. However, what if there was a Netflix for video games like streaming service that they could put on PS3 and PS Vita? You know, since the PS Vita is more modern than the PSP. Oh wait, there is! PlayStation Now! PlayStation's Netflix for video games like streaming service is an option, but that requires monthly or yearly subscriptions. This could have resolved some worries if it was available on other PlayStation legacy consoles, but of course, it's not. For what it's worth though, PlayStation Now isn't a counter to Xbox's backwards compatibility, it isn't a Game Pass competitor, and it isn't an answer to the backlash they've received since announcing the shutdown of these digital stores. Why? It's because of the fact that it's only available on PS4 and PC. Plus, you have to pay to use PlayStation Now, while Xbox allows people to play their legacy content if it's currently supported on backwards compatibility, and if the user already owns the game on their Xbox account. Why would someone pay to use PlayStation Now for legacy games they potentially owned on Xbox 360 already, and can play right now on modern Xbox systems for free technically? So what about Nintendo and what they're doing to support their legacy games? Well, most of the Nintendo Switch ports have been Wii U games that people, myself included, never got to play due to not having a Wii U. Most of these ports have been called definitive editions or at least something close to that, and have featured various upgrades. To give some examples, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was a low-effort $60 port of 3 Super Mario games, although it should have contained Super Mario Galaxy 2 as well. Super Mario 3D World had Bowser's Fury attached to it as new content, and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze had Funky Kong added to the game, which was basically an easy mode. I'm one of the first people to criticize Nintendo's questionable choices, but even though they're charging $60 for these games, they're still supporting their legacy content. In fact, you see people always talking about what other ports they'd love to see on the Switch, such as Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. These games might be low-effort ports, and most people can see that. Hell, look at Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD as another example of a clearly low-effort port, but Nintendo is still getting the job done. They're still making millions of dollars off of these ports, and people are still happy to at least have these games on the Switch rather than having the library closed off on them. The big three, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, all have very different plans when it comes to supporting their video game legacies. Xbox has backwards compatibility and its seemingly ongoing support and growing catalog of legacy games. Nintendo has a catalog of games available on their platform, plus limited legacy consoles and definitive edition ports of games, and PlayStation seemingly only has PS4 to PS5 on their agenda. It's frustrating, it truly is, and the worst part is, they don't necessarily seem to care. There hasn't been any type of response to their audience that has been publicly discussing this ridiculous decision and voicing their opinions, which are obviously strongly against it. Thanks to Video Game Chronicles, we have an estimated 2,000 digital-only games that will disappear because of this shutdown, and about 120 of those games will disappear forever. I'll throw the numbers up on the screen rather than reading it off to you so you can read it at your own speed, but losing any video game that'll fade into obscurity in video game history sucks, man. I don't doubt that PlayStation will have redeeming announcements going forward that'll likely win their audience over again, but it's hard to not question what they're doing and why. With PSVR2 news finally being announced by PlayStation, it's also hard to not be concerned about backwards compatibility with the PSVR1 as well. All new technology such as new controllers with adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, finger touch detection, action buttons / analog sticks, and the most worrisome part, new tracking. Compared to PSVR, which happens to be tracked by a camera and the light on the headset, the PSVR2 is tracked through a tracking ring across the bottom of the controller. I'm not concerned about new technology as a whole. Trust me, the PSVR1 games are clearly outdated because PSVR1 is basically ancient compared to the headsets that are available right now. I'm heavily concerned about whether or not I'll be able to play games like Beat Saber, Iron Man VR, and other PSVR games in my library. As of April 2021, you still need the regular DualShock 4 to play Astrobot VR because it doesn't support the DualSense at all. Meanwhile, other PSVR games also require the PlayStation Move controllers. Are we going to be forced to still use this outdated technology if we want to play these games on our PSVR2? Are certain games going to not be usable with the PSVR2 because the tracking seems to likely be different? Are they going to get PSVR1 to PSVR2 enhancements in the same vein as PS4 to PS5 games? It's hard to gauge these worries since PlayStation has stated the PSVR2 isn't coming out in 2021, and it seems like they're not all that concerned about people who still use most of their legacy content. As Xbox continues to do an amazing job with backwards compatibility, and Nintendo continues to create new definitive editions of their past games, PlayStation is always going to have that question mark around them. Questions such as, are we going to have to wait for rare high quality remakes of past games like Medieval, Ratchet & Clank, and Final Fantasy VII are always going to be around PlayStation because we simply don't know. PlayStation needs to stop shunning their legacy because there is an audience for it. Limited Run Games, a company that makes limited runs of physical versions of digital games, proves this. People are willing to pay a premium price to have a physical edition of a game in case something gets removed from digital stores. For example, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. There is an audience for people who still play old retro games till this day. It's not like PlayStation didn't try to make a legacy console to capitalize on that audience. The PlayStation Classic, which was basically a replica of the SNES or NES Classic but for PS1 games, was available for the premium entry price of $99 USD. For reference, the SNES Classic launched at $79.99 USD and the NES Classic launched at $59.99 USD. This is what the PlayStation Classic had for the entry price of $99 USD, the shortest wire length I've ever seen for wired controllers, no dedicated home button, and an okay catalog of games that could have been better. As someone who actually bought the PlayStation Classic, for reference I got it on sale for like 20 bucks, I can tell you right now that it did not last me more than a week. I literally went back to the SNES or NES Classic because they had not only a better catalog of games, but they were both overall better in my opinion. I also understand that the whole appeal of those legacy consoles is to mod them and add your own favorite games to those models, but if I'm being honest, I'm more than likely to do that for the SNES or NES Classic than the PlayStation Classic. Think about it, if PlayStation is going to copy something simple such as a legacy console, you can only imagine what'll happen if they try to copy Xbox's backwards compatibility or Xbox's Game Pass, which they legitimately can't mess up at all because Game Pass is the best deal in gaming. It's not about simply getting the job done, it's about getting the job done right. People might not agree with Nintendo's plan of relying on Wii U ports to carry the Nintendo Switch and want original new games on the Switch. In fact, you can add me to that team, but at least they're adding incentives for people to pick up these old games. At least Nintendo is showing that they still believe in their Wii U games enough to bring them to the Switch rather than not gauging that interest at all. On top of that, at least Xbox is continuously gauging their audience to bring games to backwards compatibility or Game Pass. Nintendo and Xbox both seemingly understand the importance of their legacy and the importance of the games or mascots that got them to where they are. PlayStation clearly needs to realize the importance of their legacy and should have gauged the audience to see if they actually should close these digital stores down. Hopefully people make this a big enough deal to reverse the digital stores getting closed down and people can continue to keep enjoying their games on those consoles. Plus, it'd be nice if those games don't fade into a video game obscurity. Ironically, despite the fact that their slogan is "Play has no limits," play does have limits, PlayStation. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you really enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, write a comment down below. Don't forget to keep it real with peace, love, and positivity.